and narrated by two actors, a male and a female, who
Dawn and Gail.
Deadly Trap Mushroom Murder Trial. Now, just to get us started, this next time you guys in America would like to complain about your court TV live stream, have a listen to what we Australians have to do to actually present this to you. So we get to listen to a lovely podcast of the day. No pictures, no audio. In fact, the audio is actually delivered and narrated by two actors, a male and a female, who actually just speak some of the testimony for the day. So let's not complain about law and crime, nor about court TV, because this is what you have to do otherwise. So I know you guys have obviously heard about this. The trial started on Wednesday. They seated the jury on Tuesday. There was 15 jurors seated, 10 of them male, which surprised me. So I thought we would go. I did a little bit of a blurb on it last week, and this is Tanya's production. Unfortunately, I have got her in the background, like doing so much work behind the scenes for the Karen Reid trial. She doesn't have time to scratch herself. So I'm sorry, Tan, keeping you so busy. So please do head to her channel to like and subscribe, and the links are at the end of the presentation. So, the mushroom trial. I'll give you a little bit of a background and details on what the death cap mushroom is for a start. So, the death cap mushrooms are the most deadly fungi in the world. They're unlike common edible varieties, and these lethal mushrooms can't be cultivated commercially. They grow exclusively in the wild, and typically at the base of certain trees. In Victoria, they're rare, but they're commonly found during May. Lucky. It's May now. When they're ingested, the death caps trigger a devastating sequence of events in the human body. Initial symptoms are severe vomiting and diarrhea that typically begins within 6 to 12 hours after consumption. These symptoms may temporarily subside, creating a false sense of recovery before the poison silently attacks the liver and the kidneys. Without emergency intervention, multiple organ failure follows, often leading to death within days. And that sounds like an excruciating way to go. So let's go a little bit of a background again about the Patterson family. They moved from Perth. They have had apparently a tumultuous relationship, Simon and Erin. And he did go on to explain about a family trip that they went round Australia on, and once they got, I think, up to Cairns somewhere, she decided that she'd had enough and she left the baby with him and caught a plane back to Perth. So they have been on and on off again. Not that that's anything against her, and not that that makes her a murderess. So once they were at Perth, they lived separately. Then they got back together and they've moved to Melbourne. Now they've moved to a regional town out east of Melbourne. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. It's about an hour and a half from here, and it's a nice, quiet little country town called Leongatha in Victoria. So she's a mother of two children, aged 9 and 14. Though she's separated from her husband, Simon, they maintained what appeared to be an amicable relationship, sharing the custody of their children. Erin was described by her defence as a loving and attentive mother and a valued member of the wider Patterson family, despite the marital separation. And it sounded like, from what they were trying to explain, was that Erin would often go to his parents to seek sympathy or advice from them. And so their motto was to basically just say, you guys need to sort it out for yourself. Let's turn that off. Of course, someone rings in the middle of Yeah, never fails. All right. So the Patterson's extended family included Simon's parents, Don and Gail Patterson, and his aunt and uncle, Heather and Ian Wilkinson. Now, Ian is also the pastor at the local church where they both worshipped. So, in mid-January 2023, Erin began using a new phone with 2 SIM cards. Court documents later revealed that a digital trail that prosecutors claimed laid the groundwork for what would follow. Between March and May of 2023, Erin's browsing history showed searches on a website called iNaturalist, where local users had reported death cap mushroom sightings near Leongatha. Cell tower data placed her phone in these same areas during this period. What? No, no, Mr. Whiffen to come and show us his graphs and his pings and his his pie graphs and his arcs and nope, none of that. Not for us Aussies. You're just gonna have to take our word for it. No expert testimony unless it's written down. During the same time frame, Erin joined a Facebook group dedicated to discussing Kelly Lane, a former Australian water polo player convicted of murdering her newborn daughter in 1996. Ew. In this group chat, Erin allegedly shared messages about dehydrating mushrooms, blitzing them into powder, and hiding powdered mushrooms in everything, including chocolate brownies she made for her children without their knowledge. So, in July, she sent out an invitation. Erin attended church services where she extended the invitation to Simon's parents, Don and Gail Patterson, along Ian and Heather Wilkinson. Now, as I said, Ian was the local pastor. Okay, she wanted them to join her for lunch at their Leongatha home. She also invited her estranged husband Simon. Now, the pretext for this gathering, according to the prosecutor, was that Erin claimed to have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and wanted advice about how to break the news to her children. Both prosecution and defence now agree she'd never been diagnosed with cancer. So that was a ruse, obviously. I'm hearing some red flags. I don't know about you, but yep, this sounds like a cry to try and get attention. Simon Patterson declined the invitation via text message. Ooh, that would have stung. Telling Erin he didn't feel comfortable attending after their relationship soured. The prosecution claimed Erin appeared quite upset by this and persisted and really wanted him to attend. So apparently there was multiple text messages to him saying how disappointed she was and how he should make the effort and, it was important information, blah, 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 blah. So the lunch went ahead anyway. On Saturday, July the 29th, Don and Gail Patterson, along with Ian and Heather Wilkinson, arrived at Erin's Leongatha home for lunch. Erin had prepared individual beef Wellingtons, described as a piece of steak covered with mushrooms and completely encased in pastry. Well, it's not just steak, it's eye fillet, and it's a very technical dish. Takes forever. She later claimed to have used 2 different types of mushrooms, button mushrooms, purchased from Woolworths supermarket, and dried mushrooms from a Chinese grocery in Melbourne suburbs. They're everywhere here. They're normally called shiitakes. A critical detail noted by prosecutors was that Heather and Gail helped move 4 large grey plates from the kitchen bench to the dining room table, while Erin took a smaller, lighter coloured plate to her place at the table. This difference in tableware would later become significant evidence in the case. Ooh-ah. The group said grace before eating. Ian, Heather, and Donald consumed their entire portions, while Gail ate about half and gave the remainder to her husband. The guests reportedly commented on how delicious the meal was. After the meal, Erin allegedly told the group about her cancer diagnosis and asked for their advice about informing their children. The group prayed for her well-being before departing for their homes. Now, the symptoms emerge. That same evening, all 4 lunch guests began experiencing severe symptoms: violent vomiting and diarrhea. Oh God, could you imagine only having one toilet and you're both at both ends? Oh, that's nasty. Oh, I've got mental images. Their conditions deteriorated rapidly. I'm not surprised. On Sunday morning, July the 30th, Erin called her estranged husband Simon, claiming she had been experiencing diarrhea since the previous evening. However, prosecutors would later present CCTV evidence showing Erin driving her son to a flying lesson that afternoon without any apparent urgency to use restroom facilities. Additional footage showed her entering and exiting a public toilet at a service station in just 9 seconds. Woo! Quickest poop yet. Behaviour inconsistent with someone suffering severe gastrointestinal distress. By Monday morning, July 31st, the victim's conditions had worsened significantly. While waiting for an ambulance, Heather Wilkinson made a critical observation to Simon Patterson, saying, "I noticed that Erin put her food on a different plate than ours. Her plate had colours on it, and I wondered why that was." The same morning, Erin presented herself at the Leongatha Hospital Urgent Care Clinic. Doctors had just learned that the Pattersons and Wilkinsons might have been poisoned by death cap mushrooms and urged Erin to be admitted immediately. So she presented there, and because they had associated the meal with her, they admitted her without even questioning it. According to the court testimony, Erin was extremely reluctant to be hospitalised, stating, "I haven't come prepared to be admitted to hospital. I was just coming to be checked." She signed a discharge form against medical advice and left, promising to return in 20 minutes. She only returned and agreed to medical assessment after being told police would be contacted. Why would you want to risk not staying? That doesn't make any sense to me. Although not a lot does. Dr. Foote, okay, examined Erin and noted she appeared moderately dehydrated with a gastrointestinal type illness. When questioned about her children, Erin claimed they had eaten leftovers from which she had scraped off the mushrooms, as the children did not like mushrooms. She appeared reluctant to have her children assessed, expressing more concern about stressing them out than their potential exposure to poison. Right, okay. The plot thickens. So the investigation begins. Whilst Erin was in hospital, police searched her home and recovered a bag of leftover beef Wellington from her bins. These remains were sent to experts at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne for analysis, but no traces of death cap mushrooms were detected. As the victim's conditions deteriorated further, police intensified their investigation. On August the 3rd, Erin allegedly disposed of a food dehydrator at a nearby landfill. August the 4th, police recovered the dehydrator, which was later found to contain death cap mushroom residue and bore Erin's fingerprints. Bugger! Didn't think that through, did you? August the 5th, Gail Patterson, Don Patterson, and Heather Wilkinson died from multiple organ failure due to the Amanita mushroom poisoning. Wow. August 5th, in a police interview, Erin claimed she had never dehydrated food. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Ian Wilkinson, although critically ill, would eventually survive, and after extended hospitalisation, the pastor became a widower following his wife's death. Police executed 2 search warrants on Erin's home, one in August and another in November in 2023. During one raid, while given permission to use her phone to arrange legal representation and childcare, Erin allegedly performed a factory reset on the device, not once, but twice, and then apparently she did it again remotely after they had seized her phone. Yep. Another red flag. So, nearly 2 years after the fatal lunch, Erin Patterson faced trial at the Supreme Court in Morwell. So she was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. She's pleading not guilty to all charges. Now, apparently, there was another couple of attempted murder charges against her from her estranged husband, Simon, that were dropped just prior to the trial. Interesting. So, as I said, the trial began last Wednesday, April the 30th, with a jury of 15. Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers SC delivered a 3.5-hour opening statement outlining the prosecution's case. Now, we don't get to listen to 3.5 hours. We have 6 bullet points to explain all that. Okay? I shit you not. Number 1. Erin deliberately poisoned her former in-laws after researching and collecting death cap mushrooms. Number 2. She served her guests on different plates from her own to avoid ingesting the poison. Makes sense. That way you don't mix things up then, do you? That's a bit shit. Oh, no, that's probably the wrong choice of words. Number 3, she falsely claimed illness to cover up her lack of symptoms. Number 4, she disposed of evidence, the dehydrator, to conceal her actions. Number 5, she used cancer as a false pretext to gather the victims for a fatal meal. So that shows premeditation. She repeatedly lied to investigators and tampered with electronic evidence. Well, why wasn't she charged with tampering with evidence? The defence, led by Colin Mandy SC, apparently it's a very well-renowned, well, they call them lawyers over here, but attorney, presented a contrasting narrative, of course they did, in a brief 30-minute opening. Woohoo! 30 minutes. We get 5 bullet points for that. The poisonings were a terrible accident. That was number 1. Number 2, Erin panicked in the aftermath because she was overwhelmed by the situation. Have a Valium, love. I'm sure that someone somewhere diagnosed you with something. Whilst she did forage for mushrooms and initially lied about it, she never intentionally sought death cap mushrooms, even though her phone was located in the only very few locations where they were found. I'm seeing a few holes in this story, just quietly. 4, her questionable behaviour stemmed from panic, not guilt. So does that make her innocent? Does that make it acceptable? Number 5, she had no discernible motive to kill her former in-laws. Well, motive doesn't have to be proven, does it? And who knows? It might not be obvious. So, we've played the waiting game, and it's now here. It's expected to run for 5 to 6 weeks. The prosecution began calling witnesses, and the daily proceedings will run from 10:30 a.m. to just after 4, and it's at the Morwell Supreme Courthouse. Now, I have a little bit of a broadcast for you to have a listen to as an update on what went on in the trial. Let's have a listen.
Erin Patterson conducted taste tests where she hid mushroom powder in muffins and fed them to her children. That was part of the evidence in an emotional day of testimony by Crown witness Simon Patterson, Erin's husband. Erin is pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder for feeding death cap mushrooms to Simon's parents, aunt and uncle. The day before a lunch that would kill his parents and his aunt today, Simon Patterson describes the breakdown of her marriage. Erin Patterson had invited her husband to come from whom she was separated after a rocky marriage, along with his parents, Don and Gail, and aunt and uncle, Heather and Ian. Erin Patterson told Simon Patterson that she had serious health news the day before a lunch that would kill his parents and his auntie. Presence Simon Patterson sent a text to his wife, Simon Patterson, who had invited her husband to lunch, from whom she was separated after a rocky marriage in the early evening of July. And Simon Patterson. He asked Simon Patterson to agree their relationship had been cordial over the years, and Patterson agreed the couple and their children had taken many holidays together even after separation.
Would you agree with this proposition that Erin was very generous with that money she received from her gran?
Yes.
Especially to you and your siblings?
Yes.
He agreed they used some of her inheritance to make loans of up to $300,000 to two of Simon's siblings.
And you'd agree with this proposition that, consistent with all of that, money has never really been a significant factor, motivating factor in Erin's life decisions?
Yeah, I think both of us. I don't think money's not been the most important motivation to either Erin or me in our decisions.
Mandy asked about Erin Patterson's religious faith.
When I met Erin, she was an atheist.
Mandy brought up a day when the couple attended the Currumbara Baptist Church. Mandy asked if Ian Wilkinson, one of the guests at the lunch, was the pastor delivering the sermon that day. Patterson said he couldn't recall.
Do you recall that Erin was moved by the sermon?
I think I know what you're referring to. Yeah, Erin was moved during the service. I think during the communion, she quickly walked, stepped up and left the church building and went outside.
And was she upset?
She looked upset, yeah.
Was there discussion with her afterwards about why that was? And was it because she was moved by the sermon?
Oh, she was moved. My memory of it, she was actually moved by what was happening during the communion part of the service, not the sermon.
But by a religious or spiritual aspect of what was happening on that day?
Yes.
The pair owned multiple properties, and Simon Patterson said he was puzzled about why Erin Patterson added his name to the title on some of those properties.
It made me wonder about whether she was using me for my expertise and contacts to build her house, or whether she genuinely thought this was, a move towards living together as a family again.
Colin Mandy asked Simon Patterson to agree that Erin's self-image wasn't great after she'd gained a lot of weight.
Do you accept she wasn't happy with the way she looked?
Erin is not particularly happy with how she is, including probably most aspects. I don't think she has high self-esteem.
Erin Patterson conducted taste tests where she hid mushroom.
Alrighty. Well, brings us to the end of our lovely court proceedings. Hope you enjoyed the high technology that we broadcast here in Australia for excellent court coverage. Well, we've got some information out to you. That's about it. Alrighty. Have yourselves a good one.